Hello, my name is Mark Reed, Editor-in-Chief of Canada's History. Welcome to the podcast. In this episode of History Heroes, we'll be speaking with Richard Pound, the former Vice President of the International Olympic Committee and the former President of the World Anti-Doping Agency. Mr. Pound, a former Olympic swimmer, is a partner with the law firm Stikeman Elliott and sits on the Board of Directors of Canada's History. His history hero is the father of responsible government in Canada, Lord Durham. Hello, Dick. Thanks for joining us. My first question is this. When did you first become aware of Lord Durham and his contributions to Canada?
Well, every school child learns a little bit about Lord Durham as part of Canadian history. I mean, Lord Durham's report is one of these ghastly things that you're afraid to ever open up in case it takes as long as you think it might to read. But after that, he kind of dropped off my radar screen until the last couple of years when I got interested in the period of time when he was in Canada.
Now, what was it about Lord Durham that caused you to give him a second look?
It was really to try and figure out what was going on in Canada at the time of an event that was held in Montreal in 1844. And that was the Montreal Olympic Games. And I'm trying to figure out what was the combination of circumstances that led to the use of sport as a means of trying to reconcile a lot of competing and bitterly opposed interests within the Montreal community.
What, in your mind and in your assessment, was his greatest achievement?
I think what was extraordinary about Durham, and it's important to remember that he was not an historian. He was somebody sent out to try and solve a very difficult and increasingly difficult situation in the British North American colonies. And his job was to assess what was going on, what were the causes of the difficulties, and then to propose a solution that the British Parliament would be able to adopt.
I think it's fair to say that Lord Durham is a somewhat controversial figure in Quebec, especially for the conclusions that he drew from the rebellions of 1837. Can you explain to our listeners what the controversy is and what you personally think about the controversy surrounding Lord Durham in Quebec?
Well, in the report, which was not intended to be historical as much as it was a problem-solving exercise going forward, there were a number of elements that entered into it. One is that he, I think, correctly diagnosed the fact that the difficulties in Lower Canada, what is now Quebec, were essentially racial. It was a bitter enmity between the French-Canadian populace and a growing British populace, and he could see that was going nowhere. He could see that there would be more rebellions if there were not a solution found. And he could also see that there was a very big danger that if the Canadian colonies were unsettled, they became pretty attractive targets for an increasingly vigorous United States. So his comments and his diagnosis of the problem in Quebec offended a number of French Canadians because he pointed out the lack of an educational system and the relative illiteracy of the people, and a lot of those things were true, but could probably have been more politically correctly identified. But to be fair, he was just as rude and trenchant dealing with Upper Canada and dealing with the British themselves. So he was even-handed in his criticism. But what he really did was say, look, we've got to put the two Canadas together again. We can't have these two separate entities because they're heading in different directions. And also, he said, we really have to figure out a way to put all of the colonies together because they can't depend forever on Britain defending them against the United States. So it's one of the most important constitutional reports in British and Canadian history, and it was a model for many other countries, and led eventually to the creation of what's now the Commonwealth.
Now, despite his great contribution to Canada, I suspect few people today know a great deal about Lord Durham. He certainly doesn't get the same attention afforded our Fathers of Confederation, for instance. Why do you think he has faded somewhat from popular imagination?
Well, I think in his time, you got your political profile from being staunchly identified with one or other of the political parties, whether it was the Conservatives or the Whigs. He was kind of a lone figure. He did not play party politics all that well, so he was kind of outside the mainstream parties. He was recognized as somebody who probably could have been prime minister, recognized as one of the foremost statesmen and political intellects of his time. Had a number of major commissions on behalf of the British government before being sent here, as probably the only person in England at the time who would have even had a chance to bring order to these colonies.
My last question is this, and it's more of a personal question. What do you admire most about Lord Durham?
I would say it was his ability to analyze a problem and to put into place a system that would deal with a problem over the long haul, and to put together a model that could be used by the UK Parliament in dealing with colonies all over the world. There are very few people who can see as clearly as that for as far in the future as he did, and to put something in practical terms in front of Parliament to allow Parliament to do what had to be done.
Well, thanks so much for talking with us today. You've been listening to the History Heroes podcast on Canada's history. I'm Mark Reed, Editor-in-Chief of Canada's History. Thanks for listening.